So, welcome everybody to our February webinar. Today we're going to be talking about walking school buses. We've got Julia Sanders here and Jack Blashishin. Um, we'll have those two speak. Then we'll go into some discussion and questions at the end, and then as always, we'll save some time for announcements. Um, So we'd like to welcome both Jack and Julia. Jack is the coordinator at Springfield School District, a Safe Routes to School coordinator. Um, Jack runs and organizes walking school buses for three elementary schools in the district. And some of you might recognize Jack because he came and spoke, I believe it was sometime in the fall, about the activity kits that he's received for the walking school buses. So this is kind of an elaboration a little bit on that initial time that we had speaking with him just a few months ago. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jack so he can talk to us about his walking school bus program.
Hi everyone, my name is Jack Blashishin. I'm part of the Eugene Springfield Safe Routes to School team. Our structure down here is we have three different school districts, and we each have a full-time Safe Routes to School coordinator in each district, along with the regional coordinator. So I'm the Springfield Public Schools coordinator. Um, can you go to the next slide? Springfield is located right there. I pulled up a handy dandy map for everybody. So you can see it's kind of a long stretched out community. It basically grew eastward to leapfrog some of the industrial large land uses that were on the outside of it. Historically, it was a mill community. Um, you can see rivers on either side of it, so it's constrained by these rivers, constrained by that freeway running through it, and basically developed along a main street. And it's right next to Eugene, so 100 miles south of Portland for anybody who doesn't know. Okay, next slide. So I run three walking school buses. They are at some of the more low-income schools in the district. The district has 12 elementary schools, so I do it at about a quarter of the schools. And I have some things in the works for expanding that as well. Um, Today I'm going to talk about one of them, focusing on just sort of the process for how I got it going and some of the details that make it successful. And these are very simple. They're just once a week. They're mornings only. This is an encouragement activity in my district. It's not something that, we're doing every day, twice a day, like to get people to school. But this is just an encouragement activity to get people more involved in safe routes to school and have them be aware of what we do. Okay, next slide. So a big part of why I actually love doing walking school buses is that I have a great commute to work. I live in Eugene and I work in Springfield. So I get to bike through the university and through Eugene's beautiful river path. And I get to work very much on time and get to, start my day. So I really appreciate that about having walking school buses. It gets me up really early in the morning and gets me moving before I do anything else. So I find it really refreshing and pleasant. So the next couple slides are a couple of beautiful pictures that I did not take of some of the beautiful things I get to see on my commute into work. So I feel very lucky and fortunate. So that's the University of Oregon I get to bike through. And the previous slide was a pedestrian bike bridge over the Willamette River. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to talk about Maple Elementary School's walking school bus. Maple Elementary School has no school buses. It has a very small walk zone, a very small school boundary. So everybody within the school boundary, with the exception of students who are in SPED or other special programs, actually has to walk to school. That's the assumption underlying our state transportation policies is if you are not provided transportation by your school district, you are expected to walk to school or bike or take another method, but transport yourself. And historically, transporting yourself has meant walking for kids. So this is really a no-brainer at this school. We really want to have a walking school bus because there is no alternative. Um, so this is actually a school that has had a walking school bus since before I started in my position, but it lapsed during the pandemic and due to some turnover in the position. Actually, Indigo, our webinar host, um, ran this walking school bus when she had my position before me. So, okay, let's go to the next slide. I started my position in 2022, and the PE teacher at this school reached out to me and said, "Hey, Jack, we had a walking school bus with Indigo, and we we'd like to get it going again with your help." So I had a little bit of back and forth and was able to kind of use the work that Indigo had done for me and, and kind of tweak some things and do. So I'd say that before you jump into it and start meeting once a week to walk, it's worth having a physical meeting with school admins to just explain what a walking school bus is. It's maybe obvious to all of us. I haven't actually defined it for all of you. A walking school bus is a group of kids walking to school together, usually accompanied by adult chaperones. So that, it takes some explaining for some people. Um, but you make the case about the benefits, how important it is to have some physical activity, how important it is to know actually how to get from your home to your school. That's not something everybody does. Children don't always pay attention when they're being driven to school. How important it is to spend time with your school staff, with your teachers, with your principal, with other school staff in a low stakes kind of social environment where there's not anything being taught necessarily, um, and spend time with your friends as well before school. So in my case, I like to have a meeting with admins, make the case about the benefits, try to make it seem like a really positive, easy thing. It is easy. And then try to get them to actually participate in the walking school bus. I've done it before where they're like, yeah, sounds good, Jack, do it. And then it doesn't necessarily go so well because you can make as many promotional materials as you want for them, but it really helps when there's more buy-in from the school so that there actually are school staff hyping it up to their students. They have a good relationship with their students, so it's good if you can get the school to buy in and actually staff it. All right, let's go to the next slide. So a big part of it that I have a lot of fun with is exploring potential routes to school. Um, I like to look at maps. I like to look at the infrastructure on the road network around the school, and I like to look at where people actually live. So if you go to the next slide, you can see some of my process. I first look at the school boundaries. So it's important you don't want to go outside of your school boundary and have your walking school bus, you know, walk through an area that maybe goes to a different school. So I take the school boundaries and then I use Google My Maps, which is on the next slide, to draw out the boundary. And then I import into that the addresses of all of the kids who go to the school. So that's something if you're a school staff member, you may have access to. You might have to ask for the access. Just like ask for unidentifiable addresses of the school. So that would be like in a Synergy file, just pull up all of the households, all the families, get the addresses, download those into an Excel file. And then in the next slide, you can see how you import that into Google My Maps. So you can just add a layer in the top left screen in Google My Maps and then import, pull up your Excel file, and then you can see sort of what the Excel file looks like there. Every category of the address has a different column. So we have our identifying school name as one column for each row because this data started out as school, student first name, student last name, student home language, all these different categories that you don't need. So those get deleted. You end up with address, city, zip code, and then in this case, there are actually coordinates, but I didn't use the coordinates, I just used the addresses. So you choose your school file, you put it in there, and then next slide. And then you get this little pop-up window. It asks you which columns to use to put in your dots on the map. So I put in address, city, zip, and in the next slide, you can see the result. You've got every dot of all of the kids who go to the school. So this is helpful. In this case, we have a pretty good network connectivity around the school. In some schools, there isn't a great network connectivity. The options for how you could actually walk to the school are pretty limited. But here you could see we could do just about anything. Um, a lot of kids live in just about every direction away from the school. Um, because Indigo's walking school bus started out on 19th and Main Street, which is towards the bottom of that map. I started out around there as well. We did jog over one block to the left because there were more students living on 18th Street than 19th Street. And previously there were some complaints about there was like kind of a bad sidewalk on 19th Street and there was a little section of gravel road that Indigo also told me about. So, there's just a little bit of an iterative process to determine the route. But then after that, everybody's been happy with it. Concentrations of students are. Obviously, if you have a really high density apartment building, it's good to try to go past there. Or um, if you have a street that is kind of a collector for a lot of other streets, it's nice to go on a street like that as long as it is safe to walk on. You wouldn't want to, for example, if you just had a street that goes from far away from the school straight to the school, but has no intersections with it, no other streets go to it. Somehow it's just like a tunnel of a street. It would be hard for people to access that street from where they live. So you want to kind of look at where everything funnels into. And then you can involve I had a lot of email back and forth with the PE teacher who who initiated this process and actually wanted to have a walking school bus. So we chose the route together and we're very happy with it. So in the next slide, you can see some of the promotional materials I made to promote this. I took the same my map. I built the route in it. There's a little feature where you can just draw a line in my map. So I made that. I put it in Canva and made these little flyers. And then if you print these, you give them to the staff members who are going to be involved. You actually get a lot of turnout because staff want the things that they're involved with to be successful. They know their students really well. And so, we at this walking school bus, we have like between 12 kids and 30 kids on a weekly basis. And we have two certified um, staff members involved with it every week. So it works really well. I translated it into Spanish, printed it out, sent it to them. We we don't start in the very beginning of the school year. We're started in October, so that gives us a little bit of time to plan it in the beginning of the year. We don't do it in August. We don't do the planning in August just because, there's a lot going on in September, as everybody knows. So we give plenty of time for promotion of the walking school bus in September. We have a lot of fun. So in the next slide, you can just see some photos of the walking school bus and some of the beautiful infrastructure we get to walk on. This is from a Safe Routes to School construction grant that the school was awarded. I'm not sure, I think 2018. So they really enjoy walking here. And yeah, the staff member who helps walk, there's a PE teacher and then there's a kindergarten teacher. So this is really weighted heavily towards kindergarten, which is helpful, I think, for parents as well, because a lot of people would not feel safe letting their kindergartner walk to school alone. So since there's this weekly staffed thing, I think they really appreciate letting their kindergartner walk to school. So if anybody has questions, happy to answer. Or if we're going to wait till the end, that's fine too.
It looks like Julie said that there's some school districts have apps that will help with the creating those population maps too. So it seems like there's lots of resources out there.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you could also use like a transportation department's route finder app. I don't do that because I'm afraid of messing up some of the school bus routes by accident. So I don't use that thing, but yeah, that I think that's a really good option as well.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks, Jack. And yeah, if there's any other questions that people think of, feel free to throw it in the chat, and then we can have more time to talk about both Julia and Jack's presentations at the end. Um, so we're gonna go into having Julia present now. Julia leads a weekly walk-in school bus for, is it Heighton? Is that how you
Yeah,
say that?
I can.
Heighton Elementary in Beaverton. And she was a coordinator there for 2 years doing walking school bus programming. And now, just within the last few months, she's joined Alta Planning and Design and has been supporting the statewide technical assistance team. So I've been excited to have her there, but um, we'll let you take it away, Julia.
Great. So hello, everyone. So I'm really excited today to talk about a few different models for walking school bus programs so that you can consider which option might be the best for the schools that you're working with. And so today I'm just going to share some different models and different types, different ways of looking at your walking school bus that might improve buy-in from administrators and might get you some more volunteers. So the first thing I want to talk about are our just different types of routes. So there's no one size fits all model for a walking school bus. Whatever works for one school might not work for another. So it's really important to find the best fit for the community. It's really easy to have an idea in your head when you're looking at the map of what you want to do, but it's like so important to connect with someone face to face just to get a sense for what they're willing to do and what might be actually helpful. Because it's easy to design a program. If it's not helpful, it's not going to be used. Um, yeah, so let's see a few of the different types of routes that have really worked for me. Our event routes is kind of the like easiest way to get started. So those are great for the walk and roll events or International Walk to School Day. They don't require an ongoing commitment. So a lot of schools who are nervous about the idea of a walking school bus can start off with just doing the events and then build off of that from there. Um, Event routes are also a really good place for getting a list of volunteers. So it's a really great way to launch a regular walking school bus. So if that's something you're wanting to get started, it's really great if you can choose one of the walk and roll days and use that as a big way to launch, because you'll have more promotion available to you and more prizes and things like that. Another model that I actually do for my son's school is park and walk or drop and walk. I've framed it at my son's school as drop and walk to encourage parents who are usually in the car line to just come through. They can let their kid off. They don't have to sit in the line. And it makes it more convenient. And because it's more convenient, more and more families are joining now. And to promote that one, I actually even went to the car line at the school and just had some flyers in my hand and went car to car, so that each parent got to see me, have a little quick conversation, and see what the route was going to be. And I could kind of pump it up as a way for them to get a few extra minutes in the morning. So families tend to park at a designated location or they drop off along the roadway there. But we have a nice park that they can stop at. So it's a really safe and easy way for parents to drop off their kids. And then they're supervised the whole rest of the route. And that's a really good way to, if you don't have a long route, the one I do is really quite close to the school. So rather than just being a way for kids to get exercise, it's also marketed sort of as a way for parents to just save time. Another model I want to talk about is the door-to-door model or walk stops. And these are more structured routes where students are picked up along the way, either at their homes or at designated walk stops, which is like a bus stop, but for walking. And so to do that, you can use a mapping strategy like Jack was just talking about. And you can kind of create stops along the route so that you can pick up as many students as possible. I have designed walking school bus routes for one school where every single walker had a walk route that they could join, and they could be assigned a walk stop. And that's a really great way also for getting parents kind of familiar with the concept. They're so familiar with buses and bus stops, so if it's just, you frame it just a little bit different from that, they can kind of get bought in. And another thing I wanted to mention are using walking paths. So some communities have natural or designated walking trails that can be incorporated into routes. These are really great because they keep kids off of busy streets and they create a more enjoyable experience. But it's also something to keep in mind with neighborhood pathways is sometimes they're harder to get to for the people who are living in the neighborhood. So that's something that I've had to keep in mind at my son's school, where we have this beautiful path that goes by a creek and it's lovely, but it's not like connected to the houses very well. And so we've had like a lower attendance when it's along that path rather than going through the neighborhood. And if your goal is to support attendance, a door-to-door model or walk stops are the most effective because they allow students who struggle with getting to school to have a consistent and supportive routine. So I want to talk also about targeting chronic absenteeism and dig a little deeper in that. So if you go to the next slide here. And sorry, before I get into that, I want to talk about leadership models. So a walking school bus, it doesn't happen without the leadership. You need those volunteers. But the good news is there are a lot of different ways to structure that leadership depending on your community's needs and resources. My personal favorite volunteer resource would be social workers and counselors. They already work with the students who have attendance challenges and with the school at large, and they make for a great fit for leading and organizing walking school bus routes, especially those that support chronically absent students. Another great leadership tool you can use is just using students. I've worked with middle school students before who can be a really great resource for assisting and also eventually leading groups of students. So especially middle and high school students, it's a really great way to get them involved. Also parents and community leaders. A lot of walking school buses are led by parent volunteers, and a lot are also led by different adults like local retirees or community members who want to support active and safe travel. When you are recruiting parents for volunteer roles, one of the tricks that has worked for me is I sign up for at least one day a month or one day a week of leading the group myself. And if you present it as, hey, I'm starting this program at your school, would you like to volunteer to help? That kind of gets them, it lowers the intimidation level, because I think for a lot of parents, the idea of starting their own program sounds intimidating, but if they're just joining on, that makes it a little easier for them to get bought in. And that's my last point here. Yeah, sometimes Safe Route staff or school district personnel can take on the role of organizing or facilitating the walking school bus program. They can help train volunteers and ensure sustainability. And really, whatever leadership model you choose, consistency and longevity are really key. So the kids need to know that their walking school bus is reliable and will be there for them every morning. All right, and the next slide here.
Julia, really quick. There's a
Yeah.
question from Sarah about the working with the school social workers.
Yeah.
They're volunteering or doing that as part of their role at the school.
Yes. Yeah. That can be worked into their workday. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the dream model, honestly, because it really connects to the work that they're already doing. Yeah. Let's see. And the next slide. Go. Yeah. So one of the best ways to get buy-in from school administrators is by framing the walking school bus as an attendance intervention. Chronic absenteeism is a major concern for schools, especially after the pandemic. And administrators are actively looking for solutions. And frankly, there aren't a ton of solutions. So when there's one that shows up, they're usually eager to jump on board. So walking school buses provide a structured, reliable way to ensure students, especially those who face transportation challenges, can get to school on time every day. It really can remove a lot of those barriers. And according to research from Attendance Works, there are 4 learning conditions that influence student attendance and achievement. There's physical and emotional health, belonging and connectedness, academic challenge and engagement, and social and emotional competence. And a walking school bus directly addresses all 4 of those conditions, making it a robust intervention for chronic absenteeism. And what's on the screen here, you'll see, is a couple pages from a data packet that I have put together. This was something I did in my role with Beaverton Safe Routes to School. And so the packet really gets into data that's connecting walking school buses with those that research from Attendance Works. So that first one, physical and emotional health, walking to school provides students with daily physical activity. So that's been shown to improve cognitive function and emotional regulation and just overall well-being. Belonging and connectedness, the walking school bus fosters meaningful interactions between students, families, and school staff, which really builds a sense of trust and belonging. Academic challenge and engagement. Attendance is key to academic success, so making sure that students have a way to get to school to receive that instruction can really contribute to that angle. And also social and emotional competence. The walking school bus provides structured opportunities for students to develop social skills and positive behaviors by interacting daily with their peers and trusted adults. And in addition to those benefits, the walking school bus functions as a mini home visit, which is a concept that a lot of administrators use to improve attendance. So daily contact between the school staff and families, it allows for early intervention when attendance concerns arise, and it strengthens the school and home relationships by addressing barriers before they escalate. Another important aspect that I really like is, like I said, using the social workers and counselors as leaders, because that can really contribute to the program's longevity. With parent-led models, as soon as a school or a student ages out of a school, then you've lost your volunteer. So having a staff member lead it can really make it easier on you. And I've also included, like I said, a link on this slide to the data packet that I was talking about in case anyone wants to use that to encourage administrators to kind of think of the walking school bus in this way. And the next slide. And I know that Jack got into this as well, which is fantastic. So I won't go too deeply, but so by using data to map student addresses and identify where walking school bus routes should go, you can really create a route that's going to maximize your efforts. And so the first step of that is going to be working with the district to permit the disclosure of education records. For some positions, that might be easier than others. And so it's really important because student addresses are protected information. I have a link right here on the slide that takes you to a Department of Education page that goes into more detail about the requirements for a written agreement with the school district. And then next, you would just request a spreadsheet of student addresses from the school secretary. And most schools, I think, use Synergy. I'm not sure about which districts use what, but I do have also a PDF that you can download here that has instructions for the secretaries. In my experience, some secretaries, it's a breeze for them to give you that, and then others aren't sure how to go about it. And the third step would be upload the spreadsheet into Google Maps. And Jack already went into that and did such a lovely job. Also included a video tutorial here in case anyone wants more information about how to do that. But yeah, then you can look for the groupings of homes and apartment complexes and also just safe meeting points to create walk stops or to go about it however you'd like. And typically I try to design routes under a mile so that I'm making sure it's a reasonable distance and we avoid major roads. And I think that's it for me. So yeah, walking school buses can be framed really as a powerful tool for schools to address attendance, behavior, and overall enjoyment of student school days. And the key is just really finding a model that works for your school and recruit the right leaders and use mapping tools to make routes as safe and accessible as possible. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia. We have a question from Becky. Says that this came up during the bike bus webinar a while ago, but did either you or Jack encounter pushback from the school district due to liability when adults are leading these as part of their job?
In Beaverton, we did. I know at first, especially, I know they didn't want staff members leading walking school buses for a while because of the liability. But I believe, I'm trying to remember how we worked that out. I think if they're volunteering outside of school hours, then that's one way to work around that. And also in Beaverton, I know there's been movement on kind of moving past that issue with bike buses. I think seeing bike buses like promoted on the news and seeing them all over, it really helps with risk management as far as them realizing that other districts are doing this and they're doing it well. So
Yeah, it hasn't come up in my district either. I think my district's very, very supportive of safe routes to school. And if the liability issue were to come up in the first place, it would be with me as an employee of the district biking around the city all the time on an e-bike provided by the district. That would be a more probably the question to come up first, but that has not stopped us from being able to do safe routes to school programming. Where it has come up with is partnering with the city of Springfield, which is much more liability minded, and I haven't found a solution to that other than like I can't do certain things if an event is put on by the city of Springfield. So it's sort of I've been asked like who's providing the insurance for this event, and if it's not the school district, then it kind of limits what we can do.
Yeah, Julie, do you want to answer or ask your question?
Yeah, this is actually more of just a comment. I know we have liability concerns here at the Medford School District, and we would just make sure that we note any kind of risks involved in any of our flyers, that this is not a requirement. This is voluntary on the parents' side. Just make sure you get that verbiage cleared with your district. And sometimes they even just have their lawyer look over and just say, yep, that looks good. The other thing, I don't know if you guys mentioned this, if I missed it, sorry if you did. Your leaders that are volunteering that are not a school employee, make sure that they go through the proper channels on your school district's volunteer criteria, and that's usually a background check. So you don't want to have your leaders leading the group as volunteers from the community if they have not been checked as a background check. Because if somebody did do that and you didn't do your due diligence, and if something happened, that would be horrible. So make sure you get your volunteers checked. And then this is just suggestions from me. You don't have, you guys do whatever your district requires. The other thing though, as far as an employee doing it as a volunteer position, if they are not covered on their time, make sure that their job doesn't, I guess, bully laws require that you don't do a job that you would otherwise get paid for. So just make sure it's not in their job description to help with any kind of transportation or absenteeism, things like that. And if they do, then that would be the case where I feel that make sure that the district is paying them for their job.
That's great. Thanks for all of that. Um, Mary Jo asked a question about saying most walking or bike buses are focused on the morning commute, but are there any afternoon or dismissal groups? Um, Also referring to the traffic congestion in the afternoon, parent drivers lining up for a long time. So, has anybody ever done an afternoon walking school bus? It's not something I think I've ever actually heard of.
My district, for walk and roll to school, the spring one, bike and roll to school month, they did a week of daily bike bus in the morning and in the afternoon. And I thought that sounded like a lot, but they did it. And I I remember hearing them say, yeah, it went well. So I think it was maybe like the participation wasn't so huge that it was overwhelming.
Mhm.
Um, but I imagine that, you know, if you get a lot of people, that's a lot of addresses that you have to go to and make sure everybody gets home. So you can do that, hand off back to the parents. I think that's the biggest challenge with the afternoon is you really, when the kid is in your responsibility, you have a lot more, you really have a big responsibility to make sure that they go to a safe person and not just disappear. So I think that's why it's usually in the morning only.
Sure.
Yeah, I've led a bike bus in the afternoon because there were concerns about students getting their bikes back home. Um, and so we just chose a park, and that was where we met, and also where parents met their student. And that way I didn't have to go to each address because I agree that would be a lot to manage. And also, you're totally right, Jack. It's like you've got to have an idea of who these parents are. So I think making sure in the morning that you know who the parent is and you can recognize them again in the afternoon is important. And that communication is really, really important for safety. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, both of you. Um, Nicole, do you want to ask your question or if you have a comment?
Hey there. Oh, I was just going to share my experience. We did a walking school bus in Clackamas County, and it was due to some removed bus service because an improvement was put in across a busy road. And so the district had asked me to help with morning and afternoon walking school bus. And we did it once a week for quite a while. As the kids got more comfortable, it was fun to see them after school and kind of be the pickup point. But after a while, it was funny to see, lots of kids just jetting out and leaving on their own. Again, that if any relationship that didn't have a parent connection, they were confused as to why the kid was, kind of quote on their own. And yeah, sometimes they had bikes and others did not. So yeah, just kind of putting out that expectation of flexibility, especially in the afternoon when there's not parents either at the end point of the bus or knowing what their kid's doing exactly. So yeah, good luck everybody.
Thanks for that. Um, Julia, do you want to elaborate a little bit more? Sarah asked you a question about targeting specific students with attendance issues. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so I worked with one school in Beaverton, Kinnaman Elementary, and they're a Title I school. And they had a group of families in one neighborhood that were really struggling just to get their kids to school. And I believe the issue was there were younger siblings who were babies. And so the mom, and there weren't good sidewalks. The mom was having to wake up and get everybody dressed, get them to school on time. It was a real struggle. And they didn't own a car. So yeah, the school social worker was able to lead a daily walking school bus in the morning and in the afternoon, which was fantastic. And so it took her not that long. It was like a 15-minute walk, really. She'd walk to the houses, pick up the students at their door, and then take them to school. And it resulted in like an incredible turnaround for attendance. They were so impressed that I know the vice principal was working on her doctorate and wanted to use it in her dissertation even. It was really powerful seeing how it turned their school experience around. Not just the walking, but also that parent teacher connection, and like that kind of shifts something in the student's brain. Like it's like they feel a little more welcome or more part of the school community. And the way they structured that as far as the job duties and volunteering and stuff, the social worker was technically volunteering during the walking school bus time. However, the administrators were able to like decrease their responsibilities for evening events and that sort of thing, those like extra duties that teachers have in their contract. So it balanced out, and she was still being compensated. It was just kind of a loophole for getting around that issue. But I believe it's easier now with the district. So yeah.
Great, thanks. Does anybody else have any questions for Jack or Julia or yeah, Julie?
I was typing this, but I figured I'd just ask. I don't know what the process is for when actual physical bus drivers drop off kids at the bus stop. So I'll look into that just to see if my thought process might be on the right track here. But I believe that when bus drivers drop off kids, there's designated points. The parents know where it is. So say it's 4th and 10th. Or 4th and A, or whatever it might be, they drop it off, drop the students off, and the parents are either there waiting or the kids walk from that bus stop to their house. I don't know, and this is a question I'm curious if anyone knows. I don't think that bus drivers don't drop off if there isn't a parent present to pick them up at the bus stop. So I'm curious if that's something on the routes home, if you have it in a newsletter saying that we're it's the same thing. I saw on your, it's similar to the ones I have. You have 7:05, we're at this corner. At 7:10, we're at this corner. I'm not sure if you have those times, but that's what I did. So it could be something around that, that we're going to be taking the same route home, and that the parents meet at those corners, or at least know that their students are going to be walking from that area with their pod of friends on the way. Now, keep in mind, that would be for older kids probably. I don't know if I would let a kindergartner walk from that corner. But I'm just curious, does anyone know about their bus drop-off procedures? If the bus driver has to wait for a kindergarten parent to pick them up at the end, or if they just let them out and make sure that they're safely away from cars and drive away?
In my district, I think kinder parents have to meet the students. I think beyond kinder, they can just drop them off, but I think for kinder, they actually have to be met. That's in Eugene School District 4J.
Yeah, in Springfield, it's the same way. For kindergarten, they could be picked up by a 3rd grader, like a 3rd grade sibling they could go with, or any older sibling that's at least 3rd grade. So those rules apply to the transportation department with regard to school buses. They would apply to us, I think, with regard to walking school buses, because we are a school bus and a district transportation program. But that doesn't apply if parents want to let their child walk to school by themselves. So there's actually, as far as everything I've looked into and conversations with my transportation, the manager of our transportation department, parents are welcome to allow their kindergartner to walk to school, and that's okay. It's not against any kind of school rules. It's just that the school liability piece is that they need to have a parent there to pick them up. So there's a little bit of a contradiction in kind of the the values there. Or maybe not the values, but it's confusing. Let's say that.
Yeah, Jack, you bring up a good point. One school that I was invited to specifically was a kindergartner. Actually, it was a family of 5, and the youngest was a kindergartner. The next was a first grader, and then they had 2 second graders walking home by themselves. They were all very small, and the oldest sibling couldn't walk them home on occasion. There was a 5th grader, and when they did band, so they walked home on their own. And I ended up walking with them, and the issue was that they were asking me. They were concerned, citizens were concerned and called in, not even parents from the district, and said that they were seeing these little humans crossing scary intersections without light controlled or anything. And that's when I found out that parents, you can't make them come pick up their kids even if they're little. I mean, they were just such small kids. So I did my best to just train them on how to properly cross at the corners. Or how to even look for cars, and it worked out really well. But it is an interesting what you were saying, the standards or the rules for a kindergartner versus a parent saying, if we want our kindergartner to walk home, we're going to let them walk home.
All right. Well, is there anything else? Do we have any other questions for our speakers today or for other folks that have been any other walking school bus stories?
I kind of wanted to mention some ideas I'm having for expanding the walking school bus program. My district offers certified teachers a stipend if they're involved with a crossing guard program. So if they kind of like sign up to be the crossing guard leader at the school, and that means they organize students in a safety patrol and take a lead on just doing all of the crossing guard duties. And I, as the Safe Routes to School coordinator, am the liaison to them and equip them with the resources and the training that they need. So I'm thinking about using or reaching out to the HR to see if we could use that stipend for walking school buses, and for walking groups. I think that in ODE policies, walking groups are mentioned. So if you have a school flag, you're walking, there is a procedure for how you're supposed to cross streets as a school representative. And so I think that it might count, and that might get by. So I will let everyone know if that works. But if anybody else has examples of actually being able to pay people extra money to do this, I would love to hear that, because that seems like the biggest barrier. I think a lot of school admins would love to do something like this, but they feel like they need extra money, because otherwise it would be at the expense of something going on at the school already.
Mm-hmm. Miranda Kessler said that there's a mini grant of $500 that Metro offers each year for people to apply for that might work for this. Um, but yeah, I remember working in particular with the crossing guard program in Springfield, trying to figure out how we could compensate teachers because they're doing so much already, to ask them to stand outside just to add even like a whole hour to their days. It starts to become really big ask without being compensated for that. So um yeah, Nora, I think that is probably just for the Portland metro area. Yeah, Nicole.
Yeah, and I'd just love to say quickly that I was helping a school with one of those grants. And yeah, it's been really tricky to decipher, the staff person currently doing that job, and them using school funds on it and then trying to get a stipend. But what if no one else wants to do that job? Can that person earn a stipend now? So, yeah, meaning a gift card. So it's really tricky. I think it can be done, but it, like a lot of things, funding is challenging and a barrier.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if anyone comes across a great use of or comes across a great opportunity for that kind of funding, make sure to let all of us know. Maybe put it in the base camp or reach out to us directly so we can spread that info around because I know that that's something that a lot of people struggle with. Okay. Well, if we don't have any more questions regarding that stuff, we might move on to our announcements. So the high school sticker contest has been out and about. We've been getting some great submissions that have been really fun. We're really excited about that. It's going to end on the 28th of February, so there's still definitely time to push that out to the high schools in your area to get some high school artwork for some fun stickers that we're going to print. We're also really excited about a equity training that's going to be happening on the 5th of March at 10 a.m. It's going to be about the Oregon's Sanctuary Promise Program and hotline. Julia, do you want to take just a quick second to talk a little bit about that since you organized that one?
Sure thing. Yeah, so this training is aimed at getting practitioners up to speed on the different laws around the sanctuary status that we have it as a state. And basically, we want to make sure that everybody has all of the information they might need if they encounter a situation where they're interacting with immigration enforcement and students, and so that they know what their rights are, what their students' rights are, and just so that everybody's as informed as possible, so that they can feel comfortable, or as comfortable as possible in that situation. Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, we have that. There's a link to register on our website, and I'll send it out as well in our follow-up email here. But you'll register for the event, and then once you register, you'll get an email and a calendar invite from me, since it's going to be a closed training like our previous equity trainings have been. We also have on the 18th of March, we'll have our next webinar, which is going to be about building your own bike fleet. We're going to have Sean Martinez and Becky Newman from Cycle Oregon talking to us about that and all their experience there. We also have Oats coming up in April. And we have decided we're going to do the annual meeting, the Safe Routes annual meeting, the Friday of Oats, which is going to be the 25th of April. It'll be in the morning from 9 to 12:30, and then we'll have a lunch after that, followed by an optional workshop, kind of similar to what we did last year, which we will send more details out about the workshop after that. But we also have the registration for that meeting up on our website, and I'll send that out as well this afternoon in our follow-up email.
I wanted to mention also, I believe the call for proposals for Oats was extended a week. I'm not.
Oh,
Just
that's
a
great.
heads up. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So I have some outdated information, but if you have something for Oats, I'll include the link in the follow-up email so you can include that, send in your proposal if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, with that, that's everything we have today. Thank you all for being here, and thanks especially to Julia and Jack and everyone for all of your info and all of your questions. And we will see you next month on the 18th for our bike bus webinar. So hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday.